All right, so we are here to preview the Bengals and the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Now, the first thing I want to say right off the bat is if you told me that the Bengals were going to be in the AFC Championship game this year, I probably would have called you a delusional Bengals fan, but that's just me. Now, because I'll be honest, not once did it ever cross my mind the Bengals possibly even making the AFC Championship game for multiple reasons. One, Joe Burrow coming off of that huge injury, and two, because I was worried about the Chiefs themselves and the struggles they were going through this season. But let's just look at this game. Now the Bengals, they won the first game that they played against the Chiefs earlier this season, 34-31. Jamar Chase went nuts, 266 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. Burrow, 446 yards, 4 touchdowns. The Bengals were fantastic in that game. Joe Burrow played one of his best games of his entire career. He was absolutely on fire, and he's honestly played some great football all season long. And for him coming off of an ACL injury like that, like he did last year, his first full season starting, making it to the AFC Championship game, I'm not a hater of Joe Burrow. I think he's fantastic. He's going to have a great career. The dude tore his ACL last year, and it doesn't faze him. He was sacked 9 times by the Titans last week, and it didn't faze him for a second. Like, he still takes some of the dumbest sacks that a player should take, but he will stand there, take the hits, and continue to drop dimes like he did to Jamar Chase on that final throw of the game to get Evan McPherson into field goal range. So, like, Joe Burrow, dude is cool under pressure. Nothing phases that guy, and he has a little bit of cockiness to him, a little arrogance to him. But it doesn't bother me because, you know, when he's good, he knows he's good. He knows his place. And when he's bad, you know, he's like, okay, I got to get better. Things have to get better. He's I don't know how to word this. Like, yes, he knows he's good, but he also doesn't overdo it either. He has more swagger that I think people enjoy, and I enjoy it thoroughly because him and Mahomes, you know, both are great. Like, obviously, I think Mahomes is way better than him because, well, 13 seconds when we get to the Chiefs side of things. But, I mean, the Bengals to be here is just absolutely fantastic. Joe Burrow coming off of that injury that he came off of, just cool under pressure. It's just fantastic. But just as a side note, you have Eli Apple just going after everybody right now, which makes absolutely no sense because I looked at his stats and I looked at some highlights of him, and I'm just like, well, he's just another Daniel Sorensen. Sorry, Chiefs fans that love Daniel Sorensen. He does come up clutch and make great plays. Daniel Sorensen does. But like Eli Apple, like all the highlights I watched, he was getting burned on nearly everything that I was watching. But the Bengals offensively, you know, last week against the Titans, you know, it wasn't, you know, flashy, pretty, you know, Burrow, like I said, getting hit a lot, 9 sacks, but Burrow just standing in the pocket, taking hits, continue to drop dimes. You know, that last drive to get into field goal range, obviously really good. And their defense played well. 3 interceptions off of Ryan Tannehill definitely helped out their team quite a bit. You know, it was a well-rounded, great team win for the Bengals last week. Now, if we're looking at the Chiefs from last week, the Chiefs, by beating the Bills, now host the AFC Championship game for the 4th straight year, but that also has to do with the Bengals defeating the Titans last week. So in a way, we do have to thank the Bengals for something. But yes, the Chiefs are now hosting their 4th straight AFC Championship game. Mahomes, as a starter, has never missed the AFC Championship game, which is fantastic. And to be honest, you know, he's a pre-snap penalty away from possibly being in 4 straight Super Bowls if he can pull off the victory against the Bengals this week. Now, obviously, I'm picking the Chiefs. It's a homer pick, and I'm not afraid to admit it. You know, I'm never going to shy away from picking against the Chiefs. I picked them in every single game this year. Obviously, wrong a few times, some of the losses that they had. You know, I was wrong. Like, I'm not afraid to admit it. I was wrong, but I'm never going to pick against my team. But obviously, the Chiefs, they beat the Bills in possibly the greatest game ever. 13 seconds, and Mahomes yelling at Kelsey to do it. I think that's going to be one of the most defining parts of Mahomes' career. Just 13 seconds. I know you can say whatever you want. You know, the Bills and their defense, not squibbing it, not kicking it out of, you know, whatever, kicking it out of the end zone. I think, you know, for the Bills, it didn't really matter what they did in that situation because I feel like Mahomes and Allen were both playing such a perfect game last week that it didn't matter what the other guy did. The other guy was just going to continue to respond. And you have to remember, it's a team game. The Bills defense, neither defense really showed up down the stretch in that game. You know, the Bills, 13 seconds to make a stop in overtime. You know, that I made a whole video discussing that. I mean, I have some more thoughts on the overtime rule, but the Bills, they couldn't make a stop of the Chiefs, but the Chiefs did win in overtime by the touchdown pass from Mahomes to Travis Kelce. And the Chiefs offense last week it looked amazing. 552 yards against one of the best defenses in football. Now, I'll be honest, there was parts in that game where I really thought the Chiefs were going to lose, because you had the 4th and 13, I believe it was, Josh Allen threw a touchdown. I'm like, oh no, the Chiefs are going to lose. Then Cheetah turns around, I think it was a 64-yard touchdown, and I'm like, okay, the Chiefs went, the Chiefs have won, but at the same time, I was still a little bit about that. I mean, even before, I thought there was too much time for Allen after the touchdown by Cheetah, Tyreek Hill. But turns out, 13 seconds was enough. But I also thought there was a moment where the Chiefs lost it, and was that field goal in the 4th quarter. Because I was like, oh, you kick a field goal, and the Bills were trying to run down the clock. You could tell they got it all the way down to the 2-minute warning, and the Chiefs defense couldn't stop a soul. 4th and 13, the Bills scored. And so that field goal was also a moment, later in that Bills drive where I thought the Chiefs may have lost it. But 13 seconds is all Mahomes needs. Like, Mahomes, 13 seconds. The Cowboys had 14 seconds and they couldn't do anything. So 13 seconds is still too much time for Patrick Mahomes. And offensively, on the side of the ball, you have a whole bunch of guys that are stepping up for the Chiefs. Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, like, what's more to be said about those two guys? Those two guys, the dreaded cover 2 that Mahomes was having issues figuring out. Not only has he figured out the cover 2 and Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, not only have they figured it out, they're figuring out ways to just straight up dominate cover 2, which is really awesome, really, really cool. And then you have guys on offense that are stepping up. Hardman, I think it's underrated. He's playing his best football of his entire career, if you ask me. He's really stepped up big, and he mentioned stepping up and taking the opportunities, and he's done that. Like, I think Hardman, underrated stretch of football that he's playing. And then obviously Jerick McKinnon, he's fit into this offense nicely. He can run the football well. He's become, those screen passes where they let everybody run free. It was a slip screen, and, McKinnon, like, he was trucking people too. Like, McKinnon fits into this offense really nice. And it's really good to see that we have a really good room of running backs, if you ask me, because Clyde did come back, and Clyde looked really healthy. He was running the football well. Obviously, Darrell Williams, he was injured. And you have Derek Gore, and then obviously McKinnon too. So there's some really good players in the running back room for the Chiefs. But then Mahomes, it wasn't just his arm. He was also using his legs against the Bills. Led the team in rushing, 7 carries, 69 yards, and a rushing touchdown. But then obviously an amazing game passing, 33 of 44, 378, and 3 touchdowns. And as I mentioned, the cover 2 that, Mahomes and the offense struggled to figure out for, chunks of the season. They've become near unstoppable. And then also another play that we can mention, the incredible touchdown pass to Byron Pringle, who, again, he's another guy that's really stepped up. And then another point about these playoffs too, the Chiefs lost to the Bills in the regular season and beat them in the playoffs, obviously in the divisional round. And can they do the same against the Bengals? Like, everybody coming into these playoffs were just like, oh, the Chiefs, they lost to all these teams in the regular season, excluding the Steelers. But the Chiefs, lost to a whole bunch of playoff teams in the regular season. That was a diss for the Chiefs. And I'm like, I get it. They lost to some legit, contenders. But, they lost to the Bills, and they also lost to the Bengals. But I think the Chiefs are just playing a different breed of football that we just haven't seen from them. And honestly, a few years. I think they're playing some of the best football we've seen in years, because it's underneath explosive plays to Hardman and Hill, with Travis Kelce doing his thing. They're running the football fairly solid. It's a whole bunch of yards after catch things. And then you still have the deep threat of Tyreek Hill. He showed that against the Steelers. So I think offensively, the Chiefs offense has definitely started to play much better than it did earlier in the season. And honestly, in a couple of years, I know it's not really a hot take because the offense has always been spectacular, but I think, the offense coming into these playoffs got really hot at the right time. And I think against the Bengals, I'm not trying to speak cocky or arrogant, because I feel like the Bengals offense can do a lot of crazy things against this Chiefs defense. But to be honest, I don't see the Chiefs having too many troubles against the Bengals defense, just because, like I was mentioning, Mahomes is finding a whole bunch of other guys. It's not just Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill all the time. So I think, looking at all that, this Bengals defense, it's going to be tough because they have a lot of guys that they're going to have to cover. And then also the Bengals, they're going to have to score touchdowns. Like, you can't rely on field goals against the Chiefs. Like, that's why the Bills were going for it on fourth down like crazy last week, because you can't rely on field goals to beat the Chiefs. And it's getting to the point in the NFL where you can't use field goals to beat anybody, but especially the Chiefs. 13 seconds, obviously. I mean, that was a field goal, but, that's just another thing. Mahomes, one pass to Tyreek Hill, 64 yards, touchdown. The game is where you thought you had it in hand is completely out of hand again. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball of the Chiefs. It did struggle last week against the Bills. I mean, Josh Allen, again, I want to give credit to the Bills as much as possible. The Bills played literally a perfect game and still lost because of Patrick Mahomes. People are saying that, you can't use Mahomes as an excuse. And there were people saying Mahomes isn't an excuse. It's a reason that you lost. And I think that's that just a player, Patrick Mahomes, you say that, it's not an excuse. It's a reason. I'm down with that, all the time. Like, Mahomes isn't an excuse. He's a reason. I mean, the defense last week, though, they did only give up 14 points through three quarters, before the Gabriel Davis bomb touchdown. But I didn't think they played a particularly good game, I'll be honest. I mean, Honey Badger going down and also Fenton being out definitely killed that secondary, because Mike Hughes was on skates the entire game. L'Jarius Sneed, poor guy, played his worst career game as a pro, and you just see Tyrann Mathieu being out there. Like, the defense may, still give up a whole bunch of yards, but the guys always seem to be in the right spot when Honey Badger is out there. But the second Tyrann Mathieu went out, that was a struggle for this Chiefs team. It really stunk. But, I mean, I looked at the injury report. Him, Tyrann Mathieu, and Rashad Fenton are both full participants, so we can assume that both of those guys are playing, which is going to be a huge boost to this Chiefs defense. And I mean, I'm not a huge Anthony Hitchens fan. I'll be 100% honest, because when you have guys like Nick Bolton and Willie Gay back there, I'd rather see those two guys. Who Nick Bolton, oh my gosh, is one of the most underrated seasons of all time. Just that dude flies. He was always around the football. Like, that dude is always in the right spots, always hitting his gaps, and it seems like he was around the football 24/7 in that Bills game. Like, he's fantastic. And then you have Willie Gay, who's just becoming, that linebacking core eventually. Willie Gay, Nick Bolton is just going to be absolutely insane. And it's no hate against Anthony Hitchens. Like, obviously he was part of the Chiefs Super Bowl, but again, no hate against Anthony Hitchens. He was there for a Super Bowl, but I feel like he's one of the guys that I think they should be playing Willie Gay, Nick Bolton over, just because their speed is a lot faster at a linebacking position. Because not only are they fast, Nick Bolton can hit and Willie Gay can hit. So it's nothing against Anthony Hitchens. Like, that dude is obvious. He means something to this defense, or he would not be there. He means something to Spags, or he would not be there. I mean, Daniel Sorensen's still playing, so he obviously means something to Spags, the defense. But again, not a huge fan. And then Thornhill, nobody on this defense, like the secondary wise, nobody had a good game. I mean, they only did allow 14 points through three quarters. They were able to get a couple sacks on Josh Allen last week, but as a whole, this Chiefs team, they didn't play particularly well, especially in the secondary. But against Joe Burrow, since we are talking about the Bengals, they have to do a few things better. They have to get home on Joe Burrow. And there's two guys in particular. Obviously, Frank Clark, Jaron Reed made a couple plays. There's two guys, Melvin Ingram and Chris Jones, because those two are elite, all-pro, whatever you want to say, players. Melvin Ingram, obviously coming over from Pittsburgh this season, and Chris Jones, who's a guy that once they finally moved him inside earlier this season, just became a game record. Those two, I think, just need to wreck everything for the Bengals, because, as I meant, this isn't the Raiders or the Titans. The Chiefs will put up points, as I mentioned earlier. So they've got Mahomes, and the Chiefs offense will take advantage of the field position. So just getting home, causing just one or two stops is more than enough for this Chiefs team. Like, this Chiefs defense doesn't have to play like a top half defense in the NFL. It literally just has to get two stops, maybe a turnover, get good field position off of a punt, and then just like that, it's, a 2-score game, and it's uphill sledding for the Bengals from there. And then obviously in the secondary, cover Jamar Chase. Like, the last time they played him, they had no answer for him whatsoever. I think there was a 3rd and 27 that they gave up. I think Charvarius Ward was just on an island by himself. It's like it's 3rd and 27, and you're leaving. I don't care what cornerback. It could have been Jalen Ramsey on there, Marshawn Lattimore, whoever. I do not care. Leaving somebody one-on-one against Jamar Chase on a 3rd and 27 against Joe Burrow, who you know is going to throw the football. Like, that's just insane. Don't do that. Like, come on, Spags, be better. Make those adjustments and double team them if you have to. Or if you get into 3rd and 27, just sit everybody back and don't let them beat you deep. Like, let them gain 20 yards. Who cares? You know, just you cannot let a team get a first down on 3rd and 27. You just cannot do that. Now, this defense, do I think they can play better than they did last week? Oh, for sure. You know, if Fenton and Tyrann Mathieu come back, those, oh my gosh, those two pieces, huge right there. You know, definitely going to help them. And again, why am I not? People on Twitter, I was like, oh, it looks like the Chiefs are going to be playing on the road for the second time, or for the second year in a row in the Super Bowl, because, you know, the Rams, you know, SoFi Stadium, they get to host the Super Bowl. It was a joke, you know. I'm not trying to be cocky like a fan base. I just, when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. You know, we've never had a home team play in their home stadium for a Super Bowl before, and now it's going to happen back-to-back years, possibly, if the Rams can beat the 49ers, and the Chiefs are going to be the team that has to play at that home stadium if it happens. You know, would it be cool? Of course. Am I picking the Chiefs? Of course. But I'm not going to overlook the Bengals. But when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you can go into any game, especially after what you saw last week, 13 seconds. You can go into any game with miles and miles and miles and miles of confidence to know that your team can win no matter the situation. And to this point, I'm convinced that there could be triple zeros on the clock and Mahomes still has a chance to win a football game. I'm kidding, obviously, but for real. That Mahomes, 13 seconds last week, absolutely insane. I'm looking forward to this game. Give me your thoughts down below. Give me things that you're looking for in this game against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs' 4th straight AFC Championship game that they are hosting. I believe the first team to ever do that. Give me your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.